1987. A drag strip somewhere in America. Two cars pull into the staging lanes. On the left, a Ferrari F40, 478 horsepower, twin-turbo V8. The most celebrated production car on the planet. The year it was born, with a sticker price higher than most Americans earned in a decade. On the right, a Buick Regal. No chrome, no badges, painted head to toe in black. Even the wheels, even the trim. The kind of sedan a grandfather drove to church on Sunday. With a window sticker listing a horsepower number, the car itself clearly found insulting. The light goes green. The Buick wins by 0.3 of a second. That is not folklore. It is documented in period testing by Car and Driver. And General Motors, the same corporation that built the Buick, spent the entire time that car existed making sure the world never fully understood what it had produced. So how does an American family sedan with a V6 embarrass the fastest supercar on Earth? And why did the company that built it try to hide the answer? Rewind a few years. American performance in 1980 was a corpse in a nice suit. Emissions regulations had turned the engines that defined a generation of American identity into wheezing shadows of what they had been. A 1980 Corvette made 190 horsepower. A Camaro Z28, the same. A Mustang, 131. These were performance car names attached to performance car bodies, wrapped around engines that federal law, insurance pressure, and corporate caution had systematically hollowed out. American performance wasn't just diminished. Most people assumed it was dead. Into that landscape walked Buick, a brand synonymous with retirees, country club parking lots, and the kind of automotive respectability that implies you have never in your life exceeded the speed limit. And Buick decided to do something nobody in Detroit saw coming. They went racing. In 1981 and 1982, factory-backed Buick Regals dominated NASCAR, Winston Cup, taking back-to-back manufacturers' championships with 22 wins and then 25. Real racing victories, not badge decoration. And Buick's management decided to build a street car that honored what the racing program had proved. The result was the 1982 Regal Grand National. First year was modest, 215 units, a V6 making 125 horsepower, more of a badge than a threat. Nobody was frightened, but the engineers kept working. By 1984, the Grand National had evolved into something genuinely dangerous. 200 horsepower, rear-wheel drive. Peak torque arriving at just 2,800 RPM, hitting the moment the boost came alive. That same year's Corvette ran the quarter mile in 15.1 seconds. The Buick was inside 1 second of it. Chevrolet's product planning office noticed. And only one side of the rivalry knew it was happening yet. Here is where the story gets political. Between 1984 and 1987, the Grand National got faster every model year, while General Motors' internal machinery worked quietly against it at every step. Chevrolet's desire to preserve the Corvette's position as the corporation's only legitimate performance flagship was the same institutional reflex that had killed the Riviera GS boat tail in 1973 and starved DeLorean's Banshee back in the 60s. Different mechanism each time. Same reflex. For the Grand National, the mechanism was the engine restriction. Buick wanted a V8. General Motors said no. The V8 was Chevrolet's territory, specifically Corvette territory, and a Buick Regal with a V8 would have made the internal politics impossible to manage. So Buick worked with what it had. A 3.8-litre V6 that the corporation considered a second-tier engine for a second-tier division. What Buick's engineers understood, and what the General Motors Executive Committee apparently did not, was that a turbocharged V6 with the right tuning could produce numbers that made the displacement argument irrelevant. By 1986, the intercooled Grand National was running the quarter mile in 13.9 seconds at 98 miles per hour. The 1986 Corvette ran 14.2, a rear-wheel drive Buick Regal with a 6-cylinder engine was now faster than America's dedicated sports car in a straight line. The Corvette division was not pleased, and Buick had not yet built the GNX. In 1987, the rear-wheel drive Regal platform was being retired. The next Regal would arrive on the new front-wheel drive W body, powered by a naturally aspirated Chevrolet V6 making 125 horsepower. Buick's engineers knew this. They also knew that the platform they were losing had never been fully pushed to what the turbocharged V6 was actually capable of. They made a decision. If the Grand National was going to end, it was going to end with a statement that nobody at General Motors could ignore, and nobody in the automotive world could explain away. Because internal resources could not take the engine as far as they wanted, and because corporate politics kept sending development budgets to Chevrolet, they went outside the corporation entirely. They called ASC McLaren Performance Technologies. Yes, that McLaren. The same one whose Formula One program had been winning championships since the 1960s. McLaren upgraded the Garrett turbocharger with a ceramic impeller, installed a larger intercooler, rewrote the engine management, reinforced the rear axle, and added a longitudinal torque bar that finally let the car put its power down from a standing start. The result was the GNX, Grand National Experimental. 547 units, one color, no chrome, no badges, and a power rating that was a deliberate lie. The official number was 276 horsepower and 360 pound-feet of torque. Every journalist who drove it, every enthusiast who ran one at a drag strip, and every independent dyno operator who put one on the rollers knew that number was wrong. Third-party testing put actual output closer to 300 horsepower and over 400 pound-feet of torque. A car making 276 horsepower and weighing 3,500 pounds does not run the quarter mile in the low 13s. The physics don't allow it. But the timing slips were public, so anyone paying attention already knew what Buick had actually built. The official rating existed for the press release. General Motors deliberately underrated the GNX to protect the Corvette. A Buick Regal with a window sticker claiming 300 horsepower would have made the Corvette at 240 an internal embarrassment. So General Motors published 276 and hoped the drag strips would stay quiet. They did not. In official car and driver testing, the GNX ran the quarter mile in 12.7 seconds at 113 miles per hour. Faster than the Corvette, faster than the Mustang GT, faster than the Camaro IROC Z, faster than the Porsche 911 Turbo, and 0.3 of a second faster than the Ferrari F40 in period comparison testing. The quickest production car in America in 1987 was a Buick. General Motors' own press release said it made 276 horsepower. Each of the 547 cars received a numbered plaque on the dashboard, a serial number acknowledging that what had been created was not a standard production vehicle, but something that required documentation of its own individual existence. The sticker was $29,900, nearly double the base Grand National, and more than a contemporary Corvette. The Buick that General Motors had rated below the Corvette to protect the Corvette's market position cost more than the Corvette when it left the dealership. Then General Motors moved on. In 1988, the new Buick Regal arrived, front-wheel drive, on the W body. Under the hood, a 2.8-litre Chevrolet V6 making 125 horsepower. No turbo variant, no performance option, nothing. The car that had run 12.7 and beaten a Ferrari F40 was replaced by a sedan that needed over 11 seconds just to reach 60 miles per hour. The G-body platform that produced the quickest American production car of the decade was retired and replaced by a corporate chassis engineered for fuel economy and manufacturing cost. The GNX's numbered dashboard plaque acknowledged its individual existence. The 1988 Regal acknowledged nothing that had come before it. General Motors had built the fastest car in America. Then it built the most forgettable replacement it could find. The GNX's legacy did not need General Motors' cooperation to survive. In November of 2024, Kendrick Lamar released his 6th studio album. He named it GNX. He put his own 1987 Buick on the cover. One of the most recognized artists in the world, confirming that a 547-unit limited edition Buick still carried enough weight to anchor a major artistic statement almost 4 decades later. Clean GNX examples now sell between $150,000 and $450,000. The Ferrari F40, it beat trades between $2.5 and $4 million. So no, the Buick did not out-appreciate the Ferrari. That part of internet folklore is wrong. But the Corvette, it was rated below to protect. That C4 sells today for a fraction of what the V6 Buick commands. The institution got what it wanted in 1987. The Corvette's market position was defended. The press release said 276 horsepower, and nobody in the executive committee had to explain why a Buick Regal was faster than America's dedicated sports car. What the institution did not get was the last word. The drag strips had the timing slips, the dynos had the real numbers, and Buick's engineers had, for one brief black-painted year, the fastest car in America. General Motors just made sure the window sticker didn't say so. So here is the question worth leaving open. When a company builds something better than anything else, it sells and then buries the evidence to protect a corporate hierarchy. Who is that decision really for? The customer who pays for the slower car? The engineers who built the faster one? Or the institution that would rather be internally consistent than externally honest? Drop your answer in the comments and tell us which suppressed engine, which underrated car, or which erased chapter of American automotive history you want covered next. The next video starts down there.